Recording already?
We're
Oh, there we
recording.
go.
Yeah, there we go. We go. We record. Um, Dakota. Oh, my phone is not stopping ringing. It's like all day. All day it rings. What do you
Relentless.
think of this? There's so much to talk about, and there's about 38 minutes for us to talk. Um, what do you think of Oscar and Canelo getting at it at the press conference?
Um, I guess in my initial thoughts on that are kind of the just I think it's unfortunate that genuine disdain that they seem to have for each other is kind of intercepting this fight promotion because I think it's a really good fight. So I think that's kind of my initial reaction to it. Outside of that, I see two hyper competitive guys who have had some sort of negative experience with each other and they're not letting it go. And maybe one day when Canelo's retired and they're both just sort of retired legends,
They're gonna
they'll
have a
find
podcast together.
yeah, something, but I think just for the time being um they're sort of just intercepting what is a really great fight.
Well, and I think the big story here is it's not fake. Like that's the underlying issue I see is this is not a fake story. Um, yeah.
I hear you pinging and dinging over there, dude.
Bro, it's like Wall Street over here, bro.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
Wall Street all day. It's like Wall Street. Put a money sign next to me right now. It's like Wall Street. Put the money sign up, Lukie.
Got
People
the
are just
fucking
making
Lukie stock
exchanges right
exchange
now.
over here.
Yeah, it's just boom, boom. There's a guy over here. He's running in the room. Um, yeah, bro. It is. I don't know, bro. It's uncomfortable because, like, to me, it's like boxing's turning into these soap operas that I'm not interested in. And I guess that it's always been that way. But I don't really care about how Canelo and Oscar feel about each other. I'm not all that fascinated about their inner turmoils or dramas about it. I'm interested in the fight that's going to happen, which I think is extremely competitive because Munguia is young and motivated and all that stuff. And Canelo, I think there's some questions around him because he's not fighting the most interesting fight possible, which is David Benavidez, which tells me at the very least he's being strategic, and at the most he knows that maybe he's not what he once was. I just find it boxing's in a weird place when we're talking about the unfascinating thing over the fascinating thing.
Well, I think it's not necessarily changed in the sense that I think something like this has happened in every era of boxing. I think how it gets covered is a little bit different. It's covered as the centerpiece because how you get attention to stuff is getting clicks and getting something outrageous. And I think that the fact that Oscar and Canelo clearly have like a genuine vitriol towards each other is it clearly does good click farming.
Well, I mean, I was watching like the undercard YouTube videos, and every single undercard fighter, it was like watch their reaction to heated Canelo Oscar thing. And it's like
Right.
I'm just not that fascinated to hear what my guy Jesus Ramos Jr. has to say about that. I'm more fascinated to hear about how he feels coming off of a loss that we thought he didn't lose and entering into a fight against an extremely competitive Johan Gonzalez. I'm less interested to hear his perspective on Canelo and Oscar.
Is Jesus on this undercard?
He's on the prime free limbs.
Gotcha. That
So
so
he's
I mean,
taken on Johan Gonzalez, who beat Guido Scrum on a Pro Box TV card. Fantastic, evenly matched fight. And yeah, bro.
I feel like that should be a part of the pay-per-view with the lineup they got.
But I mean, this is the thing about the pay-per-view. Lukie rant. Okay, let's get me going. I think it's a good pay-per-view. I just don't think it's a sexy girl. Like if this is a girl sitting at the bar, she might get a drink or two when it gets later, but she's not getting like a sea of drinks from every
But
male
here's
at
the
the
thing. Here's
bar.
the thing. I think Stanionis and Maestre is a really good fight. I think that the Magdaleno and Figueroa fight
Could be
is
really
like
good.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like I feel like Figueroa is a guy at 126 pounds at this point, and or 130 pounds, whichever one he's at. And Magdaleno is coming off a pretty bad loss to Ray Ford. It's just not a fight that I'm interested in. I'm not saying
Well,
it's a bad fight, but I'm looking to see Brandon Figueroa in big fights at this point.
and I think when I was kind of excited about the fight until Jesse Magdaleno doesn't show up for the grand arrival. And it's like that's kind of an indication of how camp might be going. When you can't show up for like all the photos and to check into the MGM Grand and be the famous guy, kind of
And it's not,
concerned.
listen, it's not a diss on him that he loses to Ray Ford, but it's like, why aren't we getting Ray Ford and Brandon Figueroa? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I
it
just think
feels like
there's,
this fight is like this is the most makeable fight, right? It's not a sexy fight. It's not really an interesting fight per se. It's just a makeable fight.
to be clear, is this at 126?
It's at 126, and he's the WBC interim featherweight title champion. In a perfect world, he'd fight the winner of Ray Ford versus Nick Ball, which would be a fantastic fight.
That is a great fight, actually. I really
Or
like
no,
that
he should
matchup.
fight Ray Vargas because Ray Vargas has the WBC
And
featherweight title
that fight's already been signed a couple of
multiple
times.
times.
Yeah, it just seems like a kind of a matchup that doesn't. I really like Brandon Figueroa. I think he's a guy who deserves big, exciting fights, and I just don't think that Diego Magdaleno is that, unfortunately. And I also think that Mario Barrios, in light of his win over Ugas, again, nothing against Maidana. It's just like, I think that Barrios might be one of the guys at welterweight right now, and it's not a fight that I'm that interested in. I'd rather see him and Stanionis. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kinds of fights I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, and then Barrios against Fabian Maidana, I think is actually like a really tough fight that most people are going to overlook because Maidana's lost off American television, but he's very dangerous. This is a guy that can punch. Rudy Macedo, someone I know, told me that this guy's the hardest guy he's ever sparred. Big puncher. Mario Barrios, we're not like he had a great performance against Ugas. Ugas is also an older fighter. We don't even know how Mario Barrios fills out to the welterweight division. I feel like there are some barn burners on this card, but they also don't really move the needle and get you excited. And that's kind of a weird place to be in. It kind of reminds me of the Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk card, where you have a lot of fights, but are you really that interested at the end of the day? Probably not really.
Yeah, and again, it's not a slight on Maidana. It's just to say that there's enough talent at welterweight, and it would seem that Barrios is becoming one of the guys at welterweight that wouldn't make it in my list of guys that I'd be looking to see him in with.
Well, I think the frustration is it felt like this was the path of least resistance, this undercard. So, what
Mhm.
are the most makeable fights we can make rather than like what are the most interesting fights?
Yeah, and by the way, I do think that Stanionis and Maestro is a really interesting fight.
Who you
I think
got in
that's
that, Jack?
Man, it's a little tough. I just think that Stanionis has been inactive for so long that that's what makes it 50-50 for me, but I have to lean towards him just off of physical strength, intensity. I like Maestro a lot, but I just think him kind of being an older guy with a more amateur type style. But listen, the way he knocked out DeMonte's Duncan, right? That was who he saw. That
Trayvon
was a
Marshall. Trayvon
I'm
Marshall.
sorry. I got names confused in my head. Trayvon Marshall, that was a fantastic
I'm
performance.
favoring Maestre, bro. I think Maestre is going to pull this off.
You think that he's going to be able to handle that much pressure, though?
I
That's
think
that's the
he's I
thing.
think he's sitting on some smoke. I think he's going to be
Yeah.
throwing smoke, and I think this is going to be a bombs away fight. I don't think they're going 12. I think he's going to be ready to get up out of there in 6 either way. And I think he's going to be sitting and exchanging. And I think Stanionis is going to throw a lot. And I think this is going to be this is going to be the Civil War, Ulysses S. Grant. Let's just have 20,000 people die for the good of the nation. That's what this fight is. They're going to just line up soldiers. And
Well,
as
and
long
Maestre's got a little bit more defensive nuance than that, but I do get what you're saying, where I don't think he's going to try to evade a physical fight?
well, also, and if you're an older guy, like, is it really a good idea to kind of be like, let me use my legs and make this go into deep waters if you're an older fighter?
Unless you're Lara or whatever, and that's your thing.
But even now, like Laura's new thing is, hey man, maybe I should just hit you with this smoke left hand and get you up out of here. Like that's been kind of his new routine.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be very special to pull that off. You got to be Bernard Hopkins. You got to be Juan Manuel Marquez. You got to be, you know what I
You got to
mean?
be a Hall of Famer, bro.
Yeah,
You got to be
yeah,
a Hall of Famer.
yeah. But I do
So
like that matchup. I think that's the sleeper of the night. I think that's the fans' fight.
I think the Maidana Barrios fight is a hitter because I think that Maidana hits just hard enough where this could replicate the title, the secondary world title that Barrios won against that guy that always loses split decisions. I forget his name. It's like Batir Matramadov. Yeah, I
Akhmedov.
mean, like anytime he fights, just bet on a majority decision loss or a split decision loss. You're probably going to win that.
Fantastic win, too. I mean, he's a great fighter.
But I mean, like that, I feel like when you watch that fight, a lot of what gave Barrios problems is what Maidana does. And I think Barrios is going to win this fight, but I also think this fight is not going to be like some walk in the park 12-0 fight. I think that this is actually going to be like a fun fight. And I also think that Maidana's coming in with nothing to lose, and Barrios kind of has everything to lose, and that kind of makes for a good fight because Maidana and the fact that I have inside information that he hits so hard also makes me excited.
Well, he's got the name Maidana, so I can't imagine he's got a feather fist.
Yeah, he's a finesse fighter. His last name is Maidana, so you know he
Yeah.
wants to go rounds. Um, other
Fabian Twinkle
things,
Toes Maidana.
yeah, twinkle toes. We got Jesus Ramos Jr. on the undercard. He's taking on Johan Gonzalez. We also have Vito Milinicki against Ronald. Is it Ronald Ellis or Ronald Cruz? I think it's El Diablo Ronald Cruz. Yeah, it's probably Ronald Cruz. That makes sense. Decent undercard, but let's really get to the main event. That's Munguia. That's Canelo. How do you view this fight?
It's tough. This is a real litmus test on where Canelo's at and at what point in his career are we at? Is he still Canelo as we've known him for the last couple of years, or is he kind of moving into the back half or in the back half? A lot of this is figuring out who Canelo is at this point in his career. I think that Munguia is a really tough young fighter with a lot of volume, a lot of enthusiasm. He's strong. There's things about him that I think could really give Canelo problems if he doesn't have the juice or he's not feeling as passionate about the game as he once did. I think this is the kind of fight that can really make him have to answer some of those questions. So, I think prime Canelo probably dominates this fight. And that's not a slight on Munguia, but I think that Munguia's gotten a little bit better, and I think that we're really gonna find out what Canelo's got in the tank.
It's a trap fight, right? Because Munguia is a lot better than people think, right? Because he went from being a world
He's really
champion.
good.
He went from being a world champion to basically a prospect. He had some really terrible performances, and he also fought a lot of people that no one tuned in and no one cared about seeing him fight. That being said, he's developed into a very good, action oriented Mexican superstar boxer, a championship level boxer who hits hard, throws great combinations, etc. Canelo, since losing to Bivol, has kind of looked like more of a businessman than the guy that's looking to unify and undispute titles. I think you hit it on the head when you said this is going to tell us where Canelo is in the division. Because if he struggles with Munguia, I can't imagine we're going to see Canelo in any other type of fight, but just fights that he thinks are beneficial to him.
Well, I don't if he struggles with Munguia, right? But he shows, but they both really show something. I don't think the outcome it's more so to literally see how he's still fighting. If Munguia just really arrives in his moment and wins it off being young, but Canelo has a good fight. If they have an Inoue Donaire, I don't think it hurts Canelo, but I just think that we're really finding out, is he still the kind of guy that can walk through somebody like Jaime Munguia? And is Jaime Munguia a Billy Joe Saunders or a Caleb Plant? Like, what level is he at?
Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is, like, obviously to me, David Benavidez, David Morrell are infinitely more interesting. But honestly,
Yeah.
after those two guys, Munguia is probably the third most interesting opponent in the division. The
To be
problem
fair, I
is,
think a Bivol rematch is something I'm more interested in, and I am ultimately more interested in like a better beef fight. You know, like there's a handful of other fights I'd like to see from Canelo before Munguia, but that doesn't mean I don't like the fight. I do like the fight a lot.
It feels to me this is the most winnable fight that Canelo could make with an interesting opponent.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, this is the fight where he could most likely
But
win
the
the
real
fight.
but the real thing is going to be, is Munguia going to be able to, assert his will and make it a physical fight and make it a dog fight, or is he going to kind of, get caught looking a little bit? Because if he gets caught looking, I do think Canelo's still going to be sharp enough to just sort of be more tactical if
Well,
Munguia
I think
allows it to be that.
this screams of a fight where experience matters, and you know, experience
Right.
is
Is it going to
real.
be Chocolatito and Julio Cesar Martinez, you know?
Like I feel like this screams of a fight where Canelo's had a decade of fighting the best fighters in the division, and Munguia's kind of carefully been moved to get himself a huge financial payday for this, and he's fought guys at probably the most opportune times outside of Dennis Hogan to benefit him. It turned into being a great fighter, but it's also been a very strategic rise over
Mhm.
the last 6 years.
Yeah, very measured, very measured. We've been waiting for a big fight from Munguia for a long time. It's really only in the last year and a half with the Derevyanchenko fight and the John Ryder fight where he started to take these more litmus test type fights up at 168.
I mean, he was a 22-year-old world champion, if I remember right. Now he's 27. And people, I feel like, view him more as a prospect than a champion.
Well, it's also a different weight. He's moved up a couple weight classes. Where he won his belt, he was just he was just much bigger than Saddam Ali. And then, like you said,
Fought a welterweight, and he was a big guy.
yeah, then you got the Dennis Hogan fight, you got the Liam Smith fight. These are very tough fights where he doesn't necessarily look his best. Then he doesn't keep stepping up in competition. He starts stepping back in competition pretty substantially for a few years at a time, So I think that's more so I
I
think
think the
what put people
discipline is
off.
what scares me about him, because there's always been this sentiment that weight is an issue with Jaime Munguia. And it feels like for a young fighter, part of that might be lifestyle. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe he was cutting a lot of weight. But like I feel like a guy in their 20s, when a lot of the story is about weight cutting, you're either fighting at the wrong weights or there's a lifestyle component. And I guess I wonder at super middleweight, how much of that weight advantage stays with him? Or is he at a
Well, it's
weight
either
now?
it's either it's either you have a lifestyle issue or your body's changing. That can all, that's also a piece
Those are
of it.
the two things.
Your body changing can be a big part of it too. You could be living a perfect lifestyle and your body is just changing year after year. Where yeah, 154 is doable, and then it's not. Then you're middleweight, then that's not doable. Then you're 168, then that's not doable. So it's just, you know, I don't know how that is for him at 168. I could see how a guy that size would have a hard time making 154.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. What do you think it was with Mungia?
In what sense?
I mean, I watch his workouts and I've talked to people and everyone says he's a hard worker and they see him in the gym, etc. So what do you think it is with Mungia? Do you think that he just kind of outgrew these divisions and tried to make the smallest weight class possible, and then when he got to super middleweight, it's like, oh wait, my body's actually a super middleweight now.
It's been pretty gradual. And like you said, he was a champion in his early 20s. I think his body's just changed gradually. I think he's filling out. I think you get stronger as you get older, But the thing is, if you move up a weight class and you consistently have a hard time making the weight, maybe you're part of the problem too.
Well, that's kind of the thing I've wondered is like, I remember seeing a video like after a weigh-in where he just looked so exhausted, where you're just kind of like, this is not a normal video. And I'm sure he's in great shape. And like, look, he's in a second camp with Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach, the Hall of Fame trainer. And I think the hidden storyline is Freddie Roach trained Miguel Cotto for Canelo Alvarez. And that's a secret storyline of this fight, right? Is that Freddie gets a second shot at Canelo.
Right, that is a great point, and that was, I mean, that's a kind of a classic fight that I think gets slept on a little bit, and is one of the moments where Canelo really solidified himself as a certain level of guy.
Yeah, I just think that the problem was in that era, we didn't get like everyone at that point was like, okay, Golovkin's the guy. And the problem was Canelo fought Cotto, which is a profitable fight. But really, the world wanted to see the Golovkin fight at that moment because Cotto, he was great in the division, but people knew that Golovkin was the guy. And the fact that Golovkin couldn't get those big fights, that kind of just rubbed people the wrong way, I feel, bub.
Well, and maybe it did, but I think in the context of the moment, that was kind of exactly the kind of win he needed. Because that was a couple of years after he had fought Mayweather, so he was really looking for that. Like,
Like
yep, I took.
2016, 2017.
Yeah, that was the fight where it's like I did step up to this elite level, and I was too much. It's not just, you know what I mean? It was a one. It was a one off.
Kind of also cemented Cotto as the guy that loses to the guy, like kind of the De La Hoya of his era. Never
Sure.
won the big fight.
Yeah, but you know, he beat Mosley, beat beat the Margarito and the he had his wins,
But I
Sergio
mean, it's like all
Martinez.
the big nights for Cotto were they kind of went the wrong way for him. The biggest nights of his career.
I I guess there's some truth to that.
I'm trying to make a headline here. The aggregators might aggregate the show, so we're trying to
The
be controversial.
aggregators, dude. I
Yeah,
like
we're
that.
trying to get the aggregators to get some content. Speaking of which, King Rye, we have to say the word alleged, allegedly failed a drug test. I am so sick of this Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney thing. Now there's big words and stuff and drug test failures and like I saw a Ryan Garcia video with some influencers and a attractive 20-year-old woman was just his hype man where he's like I didn't fail a test and then she's wearing
That's how
some
you know you're
cool.
cool, dude.
Yeah, and then this girl's like he didn't fail it and then there was like another dude that was the hype man and it's just like I'm sure they're all super famous but it was just such a strange dynamic as a guy in his middle ages watching this and then thinking maybe this is how younger people communicate, which kind of scared me. Like there's young people out there that thinks that this is like normal and I'm like, "Oh God." But what do you think of this Ryan Garcia drama? The
I'm
newest
pretty over
drama.
it, man. I'm pretty over it. I mean, it sounds like he tested positive for a banned substance that helps prevent muscle wasting, and the fight should get changed to no contest, right? I mean, that's what would happen in any other situation.
Any long-term damage for Devin?
I don't know. I mean, I think that if it becomes a no contest, he sort of regains that unbeaten record. There's an asterisk, a legitimate asterisk on that performance. Listen, I almost Keyshawn Davis, what, not 6 months ago, test positive for marijuana in Texas, and they turned that fight to a no contest. So if Keyshawn Davis has to answer to those rules, when if he had smoked weed the night of the fight, it would have hurt his performance. Why does Ryan Garcia not have to answer to that accountability for something that added to his performance?
Well, I think that speaks to the bigger issue with boxing that I struggle with currently that there's no real consistency in our sport. Nothing about our sport is consistent at all. Um, we need government oversight. We need almost like a federal commission because I'm getting sick of like New York doing what New York does. California, there's no transparency amongst the world of boxing. And I guess that's what this issue kind of speaks most to me is the fact that okay, there could be run result in Texas. We have to see how this Ryan Garcia thing plays out, but we don't even know. And then I guess what annoys me too is the more rich you are, the more famous you are, suddenly things don't work the same.
Right. If you're Connor Ben or you're Ryan Garcia and you're somehow so more socially relevant, Alicia Baumgartner, there are these minimal consequences. But then if you are Keyshawn Davis, I just find it interesting, where we pick and choose to bring the hammer down. you know, and it seems like this would be an obvious moment to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the whole fight. We kind of skipped over most of the fight because you were away on holiday. And
I was away on work,
we're
but
gonna
yeah.
say holiday. It sounds
All
better
right, I
if
like that.
we gave you a paid leave of absence. Um, and you had to work to get your paid leave of
Yeah,
absence. Um, I just it's the whole Ryan Garcia thing was just so off-putting to me, like this whole social media thing. Missing weight, winning the fight with a tremendous performance, albeit he didn't throw very many punches in the fight, and then failing a test. It's just been a mess start to finish. And it's just the overarching theme for me about Ryan was just constant unprofessionalism from start to finish and zero accountability.
yeah, those are not two things we look for in boxers, right? Like that's not what you and I are in it for. There's a certain genre of fan that apparently, I guess, is in it exclusively for this element of it. And I think that he makes it easy to make short form internet content where he's like the crazy guy, and then Devin does the I don't know if Ryan's taking this fight seriously, and then he lands a left hook and puts Devin down. He's good for that kind of shit, bro. But at the end of the day, they both we didn't get to talk about it that much, but I wasn't really too impressed with either of their
It's a terrible
performances.
fight.
It felt like Devin was extremely out of character from round one. He's very hesitant with his jab. He gets
Came
dropped
forward.
early.
It looked like he was trying to press the action. It looked like he got away.
I thought he did very well the first half of the fight, with the exception of the first round. I thought he, you know, there was at one point he rocked Ryan, and I think that Ryan really just straight up didn't let his hands go for about 7 rounds. And then on the occasion that he did let his hands go, he would hurt Dev, and then he just wouldn't finish it. And it was I don't know. I think that this one's for the internet. It's not for the
It
boxing heads
it
as much.
it was a frustrating fight. I think that when they do a rematch, it's going to be a bigger fight because of all the craziness around it.
I don't
Um,
see that happening.
you
I don't
don't
see
think
that
they do a
happening.
rematch?
I don't, honestly. I don't see I think if you're Dev, you got to look at this guy and be like, this is a completely unreliable person to do business with. And if you're Ryan, I would think that his ego's so inflated, it's like, why do I have to give him a fucking rematch? You know, I'm gonna fight Boots, I'm gonna fight Errol Spence or whatever he
I
thinks
think he wants to fight Errol Spence.
whatever he thinks he's gonna do next. I just don't see how Devin Haney fits into that equation.
That's true. It's a good point. Any other things in boxing that have gotten you interested? I guess Boots Ennis signed with Matchroom. That's something we could talk about.
I like that. I like Crawford Madrimov, bro. I mean, I know it's not like the sexiest fight, right? But I like that matchup. I think Madrimov is a hell of a fighter. I like that Crawford's gonna just stay busy against a top level guy. I like the fight and I like that card.
Yeah, I mean it's
And we'll get
sensational.
into it more closer to the fight. I'm just bringing it up because that got announced since we were last on.
I mean, I saw Vergil Ortiz take a cup of coffee in the ring in Fresno. Afterwards, it got officially announced that
Small espresso, small little espresso
yeah, he
shot
took
that
a
one.
shot. He took a shot,
Yeah.
just boom, got in there,
Yeah.
thanked his camp, thanked Robert, thanked his dad, thanked the farm workers, and then he went back to the locker room to start camp. But his dad gave me a great quote. His dad said that Virgil is a violence is like breathing to him with the way he trained him as a child. And I was like, okay, that's pretty intense. That's pretty intense comment. So, um, I guess maybe is Virgil Ortiz the most violent fighter in boxing? Like, is he like the Cactus Jack of boxing, like the king of hardcore right now?
I don't know. It's tough because it's like I don't know what to make of his last two performances. They're so short. He's very much the favorite. I still feel like I don't know that much about Virgil. And then again, he misses weight by a pound and a half. So that I don't. I just
Well,
I
I mean,
don't.
he didn't miss weight. That was a catch weight bout.
Well, I didn't know that, but why is it a catchweight bout if you're a serious junior middleweight? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, the whole
I
card was catchweight bouts. If we're the top three bouts were catchweight bouts, and then the only non-catchweight bout on the main card, essentially outside of Raul Quirel, who always has decent performances, but they never seem that interesting somehow. Sorry, Raul. I'm a fan of yours, but you kind of have these weird performances where they're good, but they just don't ever really make me excited to see you in with really famous people that would get you paid a lot. It's a conundrum. But Marlon Esparza missed weight by 2 pounds and lost her belts on the scale and lost the fight in the ring. That was the so I mean it was a lot of weird. What was your thoughts? You texted me something about that. I hope you don't. I'm not throwing you under the bus, but what was the thing about Esparza missing weight and stuff?
It was just surprising to me that she's been so inactive and to have three belts at a weight class. I don't remember when the last time a three belt champion lost everything on the scale. It was just it was surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean it just kind of my general feeling was like kind of over it. I saw like her not really I don't want to say focused, but I didn't really see her in a space to fight. Like she shows up to
Right.
the press conference and she's just saying, I'm only here because the WBO ordered this fight. She weighs in, she's like wearing clothes and stuff. It's a ceremonial weigh-in. She missed weight. She doesn't have any type of like, here's my weigh-in outfit, which is kind of like a ceremony for all fighters. Let me wear my ceremonial outfit to kind of prep it. And then she's kind of doing these like mocking faces of her opponent. She just felt very out of character and not really focused, was my
Disconnected.
observation. Yeah, just and kind of over it. Looked like a burnout person.
Yeah. Unfortunate, very talented. It was surprising.
I mean, it didn't really look like she was totally in shape, and she's so friggin' talented. She was winning rounds, not really in shape, it looked like.
Yeah. I that was unfortunately one I didn't get to see, but I got to see Virgil and I got to see Jojo Diaz winning a real slugfest against Francis Bartholomew. That was a hell of a fight.
You mean Jose Ramirez?
Yes, yes, Jose Ramirez.
Oscar Duarte stopped Jojo
Yeah,
Diaz.
yeah. Sorry. That's a big misstep. Apologies.
Misstep, bro. But we have a lot of missteps on the show. Um, what do you think of Jose? Where do you think Jose stands in the division?
Honestly, I thought his legs looked much fresher than I would have expected them to at this point in his career with how physical a lot of his fights have been. He still got hit way too much in the first 7 or 8 rounds, but I felt like he found his groove and he was cutting nice angles on offense. There's things he still brings some stuff to the table. Honestly, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I see from him is obviously Jose is going to be very hard on himself, etc. But I think that he wants a big fight. I think he's in the sport to get one big opportunity and he wants to have that moment. And boxing's in a weird place, right? So it's like, who's going to be that person? I feel like he went to Golden Boy to get a Ryan Garcia fight. Ryan beats Devin, has a ton of chaos around him, and now might not fight at that weight class again. And
Well,
might not.
maybe it's Devin, right? Maybe it's Subriel Matias. There's still guys that need
There's still
a hell of a
guys,
dance partner.
but I mean, it's like, I just feel like things have gotten a lot more complicated with Ryan having the performance Ryan had.
In what sense?
I think a lot of guys went to Golden Boy thinking, okay, Ryan's going to lose to Devin, and then there's going to be options to fight Ryan, and Ryan
Mhm.
might be on an Adrian Broner trajectory. Ryan beats Devin, now has a PED failure, and now I think a lot of people are looking and going, what the freak? Like, where I wanted the Ryan fight because that brings a lot of money. What do I do? And then it's like, can we get a Teofimo fight? Can we get Sabril Matiz? He's already locked into a fight.
Right. Can you get
When's
the winner
Devin
of the
coming?
Taylor Catterall rematch?
Yeah, but I think that it's not as much like an A to B comparison anymore. People are now starting to go into fifth period science and prom's coming up. and they're saying, okay, what girl can I take? There's already the 5 draft picks have been taken from the board. I don't want to be sitting at home watching whatever I watch on Friday. Who can I take to the dance with me? And I think that's what we're starting to get into the uncharted territory of.
Well, if I'm Jose Ramirez, I just think he still has some of the footwork and the offensive variety to give some of these guys problems. I think Subriel Matias, Teofimo Lopez, Sandor Martin. I know they're not all created equal, but there's still a lot of good fights that I think he could make very interesting.
Okay. Well, this is our short show. Sum up what you think of Canelo Munguia, Dakota. I know you're back, all that stuff. We're probably going to come on, possibly, depending on when the pay per view ends. We might go live after it just to steal the views.
Well, my
Um,
my life clock is all fucked up because I've been waking up at about 5 a.m. or I've been going to bed at about 5 a.m. for about a month. But I think my general thoughts on this one are we're finding out a lot about both of these guys in this one. Has Munguia arrived in his big moment where he's ready to become a star in boxing? And how much is Canelo still interested in being a great fighter? Is that really his primary interest? And can his body still do what it did 3 4 years ago, 2 3 years ago? I think that, but those are the kinds of fights that I find interesting. Unanswered questions, right? We're going to get a lot of those in this fight, even if it's not the fight that we're necessarily looking for from Canelo in this moment.
and real quickly, Inoue is fighting Luis Neri. It's Monday
Oof.
morning. Really quickly sit on that because we're going to recap it and preview that in a day or two. So, just give people a little teaser.
Well, while I think that Inoue is probably going to dominate it, in my opinion, Luis Neri is one of the most exciting fighters in boxing, and he might just have enough of a screw loose to throw down and really make it a legendary fight. So I think it's a worthy opponent. It's a great matchup. Gotta favor Inoue, but I'm a big Luis Neri guy.
What do you expect from this fight?
Ultimately I expect a mid to late round stoppage from Inoue. But I do think that Neri's explosiveness and his hand speed and all that, he's gonna have a couple of special moments. I do think he will.
What if Neri wins? Would that just like completely make everything even more crazy?
Shakes the whole fucking sport up, bub.
Imagine if Israel Madramayoff beats Crawford, Usyk beats Fury. Um, we could have
Well,
an
Usyk beating Fury is it seems more likely than either of those happening. If Madrimov and Neri get wins in their next fights, the entire landscape of boxing changes.
entire landscape of boxing changes. I know what doesn't change. We will be back some point this week with a live telecast. We couldn't do it today because we were on a time crunch, but we're back to our regularly scheduled average boxing insight. That is a beer burp. Dakota, what are you up to this week and how can people support you?
Follow me on YouTube and on Instagram at the Slip Away Podcast, ITR Boxing. Got some new episodes coming out. Pretty sure we're gonna have Cletus the Hebrew Hammer Selden coming on this week. So
Dressed like a pro wrestler,
yeah, hopefully we can only hope, right?
looking like the Macho Man.
Yeah,
I really like it when he's dressed like a pro wrestler.
yeah, it's hilarious.
Can you ask him about that for me?
Yeah, I'll make sure I do.
Ask him if he'll drink a beer with me too. I remember he had a Friday night fights where he invited the fans to drink a beer with him after the fight.
I'll make sure. I'll make sure I throw that in for you, bub.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll see you soon. Okay.